In this video, we're going to be looking at using a Photometrics Prime 95B back-thinned CMOS camera inside Olympus Cellsens software. First of all, we're going to be looking at some of the features of the Prime 95B camera. This is a 95% quantum efficiency backside illuminated CMOS chip with 1.4 megapixel resolution, that's 1200 by 1200, and the diagonal is 18.7 millimeters, so we've got a big field of view, with 11 micrometer pixels, so we're perfectly matched for 100 times objectives. We've got an 80,000 electron full well, meaning we've got really good dynamic range, and read noise of just 1.6 electrons, meaning that this camera is very well suited to very high sensitivity applications. So on to some basic controls. First we'll look at the exposure time, and you can change that on the left hand side here. So say you have a fixed sample and can afford to illuminate for a long time, you could use say 200 milliseconds to get a nice clear image. On the other hand, if you're observing motion, you might have things moving quickly, so you need a faster frame rate, say 2 milliseconds, to capture the dynamics. Next we'll look at readout rates and gain. So if you're using a long exposure time, for example 500 milliseconds, you might find that you're overexposed. Here we can see our maximum intensity value has hit 4096, which is the maximum of the 12-bit faster mode of this camera. But we have a higher dynamic range mode as well, which you can activate by going to Acquisition Settings and clicking on General under the Camera tab and choosing 16-bit grayscale instead of 12-bit grayscale. In this mode we have up to 65,000 different grey levels available, so this image is no longer overexposed. The 12-bit mode is more suited for high sensitivity work and faster work, and in order to improve the dynamic range at low light levels, we have 3 different gain settings which governs the number of electrons per grey level of your image. If we increase this gain setting from 1 to 2 or to 3, we get more grey levels per electron, so we stretch out our histogram a bit further. This means if you have very weak signals, you can put the camera into gain state 3 and make the most of them. To quickly compare state 1 and state 3, you can see in these two images, if you look closely, that we have marginally better contrast in state 3 with this light level just by changing the gain setting. Next we'll have a look at binning, and if you have need for an even larger pixel, you can activate 2x2 binning, both for the live view and separately for snapshots. Now to have a look at taking movies. This is very simple in Cellsens. We just check this checkbox to go into movie mode and start an acquisition. So the first thing you need to do once you've started your acquisition is hit auto contrast once again to see what you're doing. And let's just have a quick look around the sample. So if we stop the recording now, you can tell what frame rates you've recorded at by right-clicking on the image and selecting Properties. If you scroll down here, we have T-spacing, which represents the actual time between frames. So here we've got 13.7 milliseconds, giving us a frame rate of about 72 frames per second. And if I weren't also recording my screen at the moment, I would get the full frame rate of 82 frames per second. Finally, we'll look at one of the advanced features on the Prime 95B camera. This is our PrimeEnhance onboard denoising algorithm. So if you're working at very low light levels, or just poor signal to noise quality in general, here we're working at 240 microseconds exposure time, this feature, PrimeEnhance, uses a published algorithm to extract the signal behind the noise. It'll preserve your intensity values, but just remove some of the random noise that you see. This works on a 1024 by 1024 region, so let's take a snapshot so we can compare to the image without the denoising algorithm. If we activate now an ROI representing the area that PrimeEnhance works on, we can take a snapshot and compare the two images. As you can see, we have slightly better contrast and less background noise with the Enhance feature turned on. So thank you for watching, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact Photometrics.